I don't have words to describe what I have gained by connecting to Madhvacharya, and only because of him. He is always in every step of the way. He is guided me all along these so many years that I've been associated with Madhvacharya. So I would request first Shri Jayakrishna Nelamangala ji to talk about the Jiva Kartrutva and
because you guys are talking, just introduce. Just
this user cannot be
solve it later.
And then you solve it, become exam for us.
So it's an exam for Wednesday.
We have an external exam there.
ನಾವು ಸೀರಿಯಸ್ ಆಗಿ ಎಕ್ಸಾಮ್ ಕೊಟ್ಬಿಟ್ಟು ಕಳಿಸ್ಬಿಟ್ಟಾರೆ.
I know. We have responded to some of them.
Shri Gurubhyo Namah Harihi Om Shri Vedavyasaya Namah Shri Gurubhyo Namah Harihi Om Vyasaya Vishnurupaya Vyasarupaya Vishnave Namo Vai Brahmanidaye Vasisthaya Namo Namah Harihi Om Shrimad Madhvacharya Ramakrishna Vedavyasatmaka Shri Lakshmi Hegreevaya Namah Hari Om Srimananda Tirtha Bhagavad Padacharya Gurubhyo Namah Shri Jayatirtha Digacharya Gurubhyo Namah Shri Brahmanya Tirtha Gurubhyo Namah Shri Sripadaraja Tirtha Gurubhyo Namah Shri Vyasaraja Tirtha Gurubhyo Namah Shri Vadiraja Tirtha Gurubhyo Namah Shri Vijendra Tirtha Gurubhyo Namah Shri Raghuttama Tirtha Gurubhyo Namah Shri Raghavendra Tirtha Gurubhyo Namah Shri Raghunath Tirtha Sheshachandrakaraya Gurubhyo Namah Shri Satyadhyana Tirtha Gurubhyo Namah Shri Sugunendra Tirtha Gurubhyo Namah Guru Parampara Asmad Gurubhyo Namah अस्मद माता पितृगुरो गुरु अंतर्गत भारतीय रमण मुख्य प्राण अंतर्गत ओम नमो नारायणाय हरि ओम सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ओम Shanti Hari Om Asato Ma Sadgamaya Tamaso Ma Jyotirgamaya Mrityorma Mridangamaya Om Shanti 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 Hari Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishyate Om Shanti 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 Hari Om. So what is the issue here? The problem is, how can we all have to do karma? There is no choice. In Gita itself, it says, for your body maintenance, you have to do karma anyways. Nobody, even a person who says, I am not going to do anything, what he is actually doing is a karma called sitting quiet. So this being the case, nobody can escape karma, whether he is a jnani or not, it makes no difference. Karma is a must for all. And we have seen in this world that we do decide, for example, in the morning, if I want to make a cup of coffee, I go and make a cup of coffee. So, ನಮ್ಮ ಸಂಕಲ್ಪದಂತೆ ನಾವು ಮಾಡೋದನ್ನು ನಾವು ಪ್ರತ್ಯಕ್ಷದಲ್ಲಿ ನಮ್ಮ ಅನುಭವದಲ್ಲಿ ಇದೆ, ಇಟ್ ಇಸ್ ದೇರ್. ಹೀಗಿದ್ದಾಗ ವೇದಾಂತಕ್ಕೆ ಬಂದ್ರಿ, ಇವಾಗ ಕರ್ತೃತ್ವ ಇದೆಯೇ ಇಲ್ಲವೇ? ಅಂತ ಒಂದು ಪ್ರಶ್ನೆ. ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ನಾನಾ ಥರ ಉತ್ತರಗಳು ಸಿಗುತ್ತೆ ನಿಮಗೆ. ವೇದವ್ಯಾಸರು ಇದನ್ನು ತಗೊಂಡಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಬ್ರಹ್ಮಸೂತ್ರಗಳಲ್ಲಿ, ಕರ್ತೃತ್ವಾಧಿಕರಣ ಅಂತಲೇ ಬರೆದಿದ್ದಾರೆ. ಯಾತಕ್ಕೆ ಕನ್ಫ್ಯೂಷನ್ ಆಗುತ್ತೆ ಅಂತಂದರೆ, ಜೀವನಿಗೆ ಕರ್ತೃತ್ವ ಇದೆಯಾ ಇಲ್ಲವಾ ಅನ್ನೋ ಉತ್ತರ ಕೊಡುವುದಕ್ಕೆ ಮುಂಚೆ ಯಾವುದನ್ನು ಕರ್ತೃತ್ವ ಅಂತೀರಿ ಅನ್ನೋದು ಮುಖ್ಯ. ದಟ್ ಈಸ್ ದಿ ಇಶ್ಯೂ. Does everybody understand Kannada here? I will speak in English. I'll switch to English. So the question is, in the Brahma Sutra, Sri Vedavyasa has taken the subject and he has written an adhikarana called Kartrutva Adhikarana, wherein before you say whether a Jivatman has doership or not, what is doership? That is the question. So there are several aspects to it here. I am sure these people who are going to talk later are going to cover all this. But let me briefly mention what I have understood. If you, for example, Paramatma is the one who is giving us results for what we do. Karmani eva adhikaraha te ma phaleshu. Everybody knows this. So now, whatever he gives, do you have a choice in receiving it? You don't have a choice. You have to just take it, right? Whatever he gives, you simply take it. It simply sticks to you, back to you. We can't say, oh, give it 50%. Give other 50% to somebody else. You can't negotiate like that. And therefore, such a kartrutva of receiving what he gives, you definitely have. We all have it, 100%. So if that is what you come on to call kartrutva, of receiving is another action. Right? So if you are receiving from Paramatma, then you do have kartrutva. Then why do you say we don't have kartrutva? So let's come back to karma a little bit, what it does for you. Karma does two things for you. Let's take a carpenter as an example. What the carpenter does, right? Say he makes chairs, right? That chair can help this world, whatever he is doing, or it may not help the world. It may either destroy the world or it may help the world. Right? In either case, because of he was responsible for making such karma that helped the world or did not help the world, he will get a result according to, and that is all external to him, all the chairs, etc. That's not carpenter himself, it's all outside of him. However, while he was building this chair, there is something else happens to the carpenter himself. His skill, for example, or his manas or mind, to be able to build the next chair, right? His skill set has gone up. Right? That's why you want an experienced carpenter versus a novice, because his mindset has changed. He is able to, that kushala, what we call, that kushalate or the expertise in building chairs increases as he builds chairs. That is internal to him. That's not external at all, isn't it? So it does two things. Internally it changes. Externally also it helps or does not help the society he is in. This is true for all karma that we do. What Vedanta says is, whether what you do should help the world or not, we don't know. Because that karma phala was never in your hands. Sometimes you intend to be good, but bad things happen because of what you did. Sometimes you don't know whether it is good or bad, you do anyway, but good things do happen. We have seen both in this world. Because we never had controllership over the results. That is external. However, your attitude or your mindset in what you are doing, that was in your control. After all, it's your mind. You can't say my mind is not mine. Whose else it is? Yours. And therefore, that part of change that occurs in all of us because of what we do is we can call it samskara, because it's not just over one birth. Karma that we have been doing over many, many births. We are what we are today because of what we have been doing all along. That is the karma part. Right? So for some of us, in the Gita 17th chapter, Krishna says, observe a person and see what his natural interests are. Yoyakshadda saeva saha, says. So that is based on the Jiva Swarupa itself. It's an indicator. So obviously there are 3 types of Jivas, and therefore accordingly each one will get a different type of interest. There is a Sattva type, there is a Rajasa type, there is a Tamasa kind, and so on. So I am sure you will all cover all that later. So I won't get into all that. In the Brahma Sutras, there is also another aspect that Vedavyasa has covered. He says, it's called Vaishamya Nairdhanya Adhikarana. It's very important when it comes to Kartrutva. Because he has, from Anadikala, Jiva, we have always existed. We are going to exist forever. And so this 100 years or 80 years that we are all visible in this form is temporary. It's a dot in the big scheme of things. And therefore, from time immemorial, we have been accumulating karma. And once you say karma is anaditva, Vedavyasa himself says that. Because it is, you should not ask from since when. No, it is anadi means anadi. Nobody asks the question since when. Right? So Vedanta has accepted there are anadi, beginningless items. One of them is this, karma. There are several others. And therefore, based on your previous karma, Paramatma is not random. He will nudge the soul to reach its destination based on what he has been doing. This is how Paramatma is neutral to all. There is no partiality, there is no cruelty to anybody in the scheme of things. Krishna also says that there is nobody that I hate, nobody I love, and all that. You find such statements. You also find jnanis are very dear to me. You find such statements also in the Gita. So anyway, I am not going to cover all that aspect. I am sure there are a lot of Vibhuti and all that's coming up, so I am sure he will cover all that. Anyway, so the karma is always a complex subject. Jiva Kartrutva, the books have been written. On Gaudagara Venkataramanacharya has written a book in Kannada just on Jiva Kartrutva, which I have that copy actually. And the issue is that in the concluding part of the Sutra Bhashya on this Kartrutva Adhikaran, Sri Jaitirtha says, from one aspect, you can say Jiva has Kartrutva. From another aspect, you can say he doesn't have Kartrutva. This one sentence probably has created half the people taking one side and half the people taking the other side. But both are correct. There is nothing, because both are Pandits and both are all scholars here talking. And therefore, as I said, it's like Srishti, the word Srishti. Paramatma Srishti Madana Ilva. Then the question there is not about whether he created or not. That's not even the question. The question is, what do you understand by Srishti? That is the basis. Similarly, karma. Jiva has karma, Kartrutva or not. That is not even the question. What do you think Kartrutva is? That is the question. Okay. I will stop there. I will let those 3 people who are going to talk to answer all these questions and different scenarios that arise because of this and how Shastra has dealt with all this. Okay? If you have any questions to me, keep it to the end. I will definitely, whatever I know. Alright? So, who is going first? Oh, Vanessa.
ಅವರು ಪೂರ್ವ ಪಕ್ಷ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಸಿದ್ಧಾಂತ ಹೇಳಿ ಅದಾದ್ಮೇಲೆ ನಾನು ಬರ್ತೀನಿ. ಈಗ ನಾನು ನ್ಯೂ ಬೆಟರ್ ಅಲ್ಲ ಅವರು ಬಹಳ ಒಳ್ಳೆಯದು ಬಹಳ ಬಿಡಿಸಕ್ಕೆ ಇಟ್ಟಿದ್ದಾರೆ ಮುಂದೆಗಡೆ ಅದೇ ಸೂತ್ರ ಹೇಳ್ಕೊಂಡು.
So I had more to the photo book. You don't, and you both answer.
Okay. Now it's like, okay, we'll see. Okay, go. Look at our city. We have to travel all the way from there. I know. the plan has been appended right now. It's gone off the rails. So.
Did I do anything to damage the plan?
You made it really interesting and challenging.
हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः श्री वेदव्यास गुरुभ्यो नमः श्रीमदानंद तीर्थ गुरुभ्यो नमः श्री राघवेंद्र तीर्थ गुरुभ्यो नमः श्री सुगुणेन्द्र तीर्थ गुरुभ्यो नमः श्री सुशीन्द्र तीर्थ गुरुभ्यो नमः अस्मद् गुरु श्री केशवराज गुरुभ्यो नमः केशवराज तादित्य गुरुभ्यो नमः अस्मत् मातृपितृ गुरुभ्यो नमः श्री हरि ओम. So today's the interesting thing is, actually, I wanted to give this introduction to Jiva Kartrutva in the sense that, like a Purva Paksha. So it's going to be a little bit overlapping, but I just wanted to even go a little bit more simplified and then, leave the answers to Butarik and J.B. Srinivasan. So basically, I'm going to go to a very basic level. Who is a Jiva? If people don't know who is a Jiva, the soul is an entity inside the body. So he is the one who is doing the actions or the karma. Now, there are many living beings are there, and if humans are there, animals are there. So when an animal do the action, whether they will have any repercussions for their actions, if the human being does, whether there will be any repercussion for the action, we need to first separate that, first one basic level. For animals, they don't have sixth sense, they go by instincts, so there are really no repercussions for them. But for the human beings, since they have the sixth sense, they will have repercussions, and they will have to face the consequences of the actions. So this is what they call as karma phala, or the consequences of the actions. So when a jiva does a good thing, or the embodied soul does a good thing, then we can see that sometimes for the good what he did, the result is immediately seen. For the bad things he does, you can immediately see. There are many cases like that. For example, you get caught by a cop for speeding. He catches you, he gives you a ticket, you face the consequences. Similarly, you do a good thing, somebody sees this, you get rewarded. So, some of the actions, good or bad, you are able to see right then and there. For some things, you see it later. For example, you do something good or bad, and then you get rewarded for that, after a period of time, but you are there to see that. There are certain cases where when you do an action, for example, as he's a warrior, he goes and fights, and he dies for the nation. Now, then posthumously, his relatives or his kith and kin get the reward, as some medal, something like that. So, and there are many occasions where, for example, he does a good thing, nobody notices it, in the lifetime, nobody notices, but what happens to that action? Where will it go? Who will reward that? Or who will punish for that action? So we are forced to accept something which is beyond that jiva, or somebody is there to notice that, because there are many cases where for no reason there should be a reason. For example, you are born blind. Why are you born blind? Why you are having deformities or something like that? Or why are you born in a very very poor family, for example, Ethiopia, why you are born in that place where you don't have anything? So there should be something that for some actions you did previously, and you are facing those consequences. So you have to accept, or at least you have to acknowledge the possibility of somebody who is a supreme soul, or we call Bhagavan, there to oversee or to witness all these events. So there is a Bhagavan, there is a jiva in the body, and then this jiva is doing, and that's what loosely we call it as Jiva Kartrutva. Now, when you do good things or bad things, in the Shastras, in our Shastras, it says that for any karma you do, there are there is a possibility that you'll be born you'll take 10 births for an action. So for example, in one day, you do something, and then that is going to give you 10 more births in one day, and 365 days a year, and from age 14, this happens only after you reach a certain maturity level. So you might be born, the 365 into 10, that is 3650 into how many years you live, that many births you have to take. So if you have to take that many births to exhaust all the karma, consequences, and then when you are born the next time to face a set of karmas which you did previously, again you do this karma, again you get 10 more births. This is a never-ending process. You keep on doing this, and when are you going to exhaust all the karmas? So now for the good people, naturally, they do good karmas. They take multiple births, but again they do good karmas. Like this, they enjoy the fruits of the karma. Then, like similarly, the bad people, they do the bad karmas, and then they also get births, and then they also keep on doing this. So when is this process going to end? How is this process going to end? Because this is going to be a very unending process. For this, and also why that person does a good thing or a bad thing? What makes him to do that? Are all actions performed by the jiva himself? For example, you bite your tongue. Unknowingly it happens. So it is not under control. If you say that we are in control of our body, everything should be under control. It is not so. Many things in our body we are not in control. For example, you are closing your eye, opening your eyelids. It happens frequently without your knowledge. Even breathing. Sometimes they say that most of the times you breathe only through one nostril. You don't do through the other nostril. Then you are learning that and you're forcing it to happen. So when there are so many things like this, which you slowly realize that it's not under your control, then you accept that you are not really doing this, somebody else is doing and behind the scenes doing this. Then the question comes that if you are not doing and somebody else is doing, why some people they are doing good things and then they're enjoying the benefits of that, and why some people is doing bad things and they're enjoying the benefits of that? There should be some reason for that. So Shri Madhvacharya, through Gita, he brings out this concept like our Puja Jayanamangala told, Jiva Swarupa. Jiva Swarupa means Jiva is the embodied soul, and Swarupa means his intrinsic nature. So his intrinsic nature is the one which makes him to do good or bad things. Of course, God is not going to change this intrinsic nature. He allows the Jiva with that particular intrinsic nature to continue in his course of action, and then based on the jiva's desire, God helps him to do that. So that is where the jiva, he keeps doing this. And as I earlier mentioned that, when you do this karmas and then you keep on doing this, you're accumulating this, it is not that the next birth which you will get is not necessarily a human birth. It says in Purana that when you are born the next time, for example, if you did a lot of papas, for example, a lot of sins, you'll be first born as a plant. And then you have to endure cold and heat and whatnot, wind and everything. So you have to suffer a lot. And then next, after different species of plants, then you are born as a worm, the lowest form of an animal. And then you go through the stages. And then it takes such a long time after enduring so much. And then you'll be born as a human being. So when you're born as a human being, again, if you do a lot of sins, you may not even get the best family or the best environment to even understand what's going on. So all these things, if you take, there is the jiva has, he's doing some actions, but again, he's being helped by God. And that God, when Janam also mentioned that the naigunya, there is impartiality of the God, is because God sees the nature, the intrinsic nature of the soul, and then he guides or he helps the jiva to carry out his action. So now, if God is the thing is, even if we say that the swarupa is there, intrinsic nature of the soul is there, and God is making the jiva or the embodied soul to do the actions based on his swarupa, there is an analogy. Then you can ask the question. See, God is making you to do, even though it is based on this nature of the soul. For example, if you take a king's servants or king's, his people who work for him, ask the servants to do something. For example, somebody did a wrong thing. The king sends servants, and then king goes and then he punishes them. Now, the people who executed the king's orders, they don't get anything. They just executed the orders. But whereas the king is responsible for all the consequences. So similarly here also we can pose a question asking if the Vishnu, even though it's based on the intrinsic nature of soul, he's the one who is doing it, but he's not getting any fruits. Only the Jiva is getting all the fruits. And this also, Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, Mai karmani nalimpanti, karmani mai nalimpanti, mai karma naspraha. I think I made this one. Name karmani limpanti, name karma pala spraha. Sorry. So basically, whatever I do, the actions, they don't bind me, and also I don't have any desire for the fruits of the actions. So when that is the case, he says that very clearly. So that means that something is there which we need to understand, that some quality or something which is there in God, which is totally unique from the Jiva, which makes him separate from the Jiva. That is, God is also there in the embodied soul, helping the Jiva to do actions. And Jiva is doing the actions based on the help from the God. And then it is the Jiva who faces all the consequences, but not the God. So that's a very simple way to put the explanation for that shloka. So with all these things in mind, how do we come about all these questions posed? Number one is, why is Jiva helpful for the consequent actions? And is God being partial? All these things can be answered only with the possible explanations, the Jiva Swarupa, where you have to accept that it is based on the intrinsic nature of soul. Okay, again, next question comes is, if it is the intrinsic nature of the soul, then who made the soul? Because that is also you need to answer. Because if the soul was created by God, if you accept that theory, then God becomes, the impartiality of the God is gone. Because how can God create one person good and one person bad? Then again, that's also that the impartiality of God is gone there. So you cannot accept that theory. So you have to accept that there is the like anadi karma, there is a beginningless karma. The soul is also beginningless. Nobody created the soul. It existed as it is. So Shri Madhvacharya, according to our Siddhanta, there are permanent entities. One is the Jiva, which is there, and there is something called as the primordial matter, which is called as Mula Prakriti. That also is there from time immemorial. So when God creates something, it is not like magic, where it not be created from something or from nothing. But he used these primordial materials, and he is very, very smart enough and intelligent enough to create this world. So in Brahma Sutra Bhasha also he says that God is Sarvajna, very, very intelligent to use this to create this wonderful world, which we human beings cannot even fathom, because what we see is only planet Earth. But there are so many other planets, so many other worlds, which it is described in Srimad Bhagavatam, which we cannot even go there to understand what it is. For example, there are in this the Bhuloka, Jambu Dvipa we call. There are 9 Varshas or places. So we belong to the Bharata Varsha, and this Bharata Varsha also, different Khandas, and Bharata Khanda is there. But if you take the other Varshas in this Jambu Dvipa, basically where we belong to a small portion of the Jambu Dvipa, there are some places like Ilavrata and some other places, Kumpurusha, where they describe in the scriptures that there are trees which are so tall, like probably 50-60 kilometers tall, and then the fruits are so big, probably it is like 100 or 200 meters tall fruits. So that is how they have described that. So God, we have to understand that God is having the utmost intelligence to use the primordial matter to create all these things. So the point here is, God brings about all these jivas who are there permanently and from time immemorial, and then He allows them, He gives them the space to execute their actions. So he's basically helping them out to do their sadhana or their activity. So I'm going to pause here in saying that we have to accept that the Jiva has a Kartrutva, God also has a Kartrutva, but the God is not affected by that. God is, he's having the ability to separate himself from the consequences of the actions. But Jiva is caught in the whirlpool of these actions, and then he has to somehow escape from that. And just one more point and then I'll complete this. How does the Jiva have to get out from the cycle? So Krishna says that you do Mai Sarvani Karmani Mai Sarvani Kampani Sanyasya Adhyatma Ajasa Nirashi Nirmamo Bhutva Yuddhasva Vigatachvara. So you submit all the actions to me, thinking that Adhyatma Chesa, Adhikam Atma, you are the Supreme Soul, you are the God, you are making me do all these things. So you do all the, you submit all the actions to me, and you know that I am the Supreme Person. You don't have any desires for the fruits of the action. Then also don't think that you are doing the actions yourself. But again, it's contradicting. You are saying that you are doing the action, but again you are saying that more. So thinking that you are not doing the actions, and you do engage in war. See, nirmamo, there is also this contradiction. The nirmamo, you are not doing, thinking that you are not doing it, and then yuddhasva, you do the war. So this is very complicated. This is how Krishna gives the twist there. But I just want to conclude saying that with this in background, there is one unique quality that, or even more, but there is one particular unique quality which is there in God, which separates from everybody else. That is why in the 15th chapter he says that there are two types of jiva. Dvamimo purusho loke sharascha akshare evacha sharahas sarvani bhutani kutastaksho uchyate. Then he says that there are two types of people. One who has bodies which get destroyed. There is another type, there is a body which doesn't get destroyed. And then there is a third one, uttama purushatu anyaha paramatma udarataha yo lokatrayam avishya vibhati avya ishvaraha. So Krishna says that I am that Paramatma, I am different from these people, and that is why I am Paramatma, because I enter all the three worlds, and then I nourish them, I protect them, I hold them. But when you do something like that, you can change. That is why he says Avyaya, I will not change, I will remain the same. That is why God is called as Shashvat. Shashvat means Ekaprakarane, he remains the same all the times. So I'm going to conclude here, and also just to pass on that unique quality, what God has and what we don't have, that will be handled by the next co-panelist, Sri Krishna Prasad.
हरि ओं देवं नारायणं नत्वा सर्वदोषविवर्जितं परिपूर्णं गुरुंश्चान् गीतार्थं वक्ष्यामि लेशतः समस्तगुणसम्पूर्णं सर्वदोषविवर्जितं नारायणं नमस्कृत्य गीतातात्पर्यमुच्यते गुणगणनिलयं पतिं रमाया जगदगदहनं च वासवीसूनुं मुनुकुलतिलकं च पूर्णबोधं गुरुमपि परमं गुरुं च मे वन्दे इन्दिरावदनाम्बोज राजहंसाय विष्णवे अमन्दानन्दसन्दोहसुन्दराकृतये नमः लक्ष्मीनारायणं नत्वा पूर्णबोधान् गुरूनपि कुर्म श्रीकृष्णगीतायाः भाष्याद्युक्तार्थसङ्ग्रहम् हयग्रीव हयग्रीव हयग्रीवेति यो वदेत् तस्य निस्सरते वाणी जह्नुकन्या प्रवाहवत् मुकोऽपि यत्प्रसादेन मुकुन्दशयनायते राजराजायते रिक्तो राघवेन्द्रं तमाश्रय हरि ओम्. With all namaskaras to Sri Swamiji and my Guru Sri Keshav Rao and Meeraji, and the Guru who is sitting here, Sri Jayakrishna, and all of the people here. It's a pleasure for me to talk, but before that I want to heap a lot of compliments and wishes on Vivek. So we have known each other for the better part of 17 years or so, and when we originally met, and his main question at that time also had been, is there predetermination or predisposition? Is everything predetermined, right? That was his question. And that's one of those questions which kind of bothers even the novice and the very well-read. And depending on how much amount of concentration you do, you seem to get an answer and then you don't get an answer. And even if you do get an answer, you never have a good chance of internalizing it. You could say the words, but internalizing it becomes more and more difficult. And like what Shri Jayakrishna ji said, the karma is there. Outside, it does some stuff, but inside, it needs to enrich you and make you a little bit more cleaner, purer. And that's what I think. And so kudos to him. I think he has done a lot of advancement. He has done a lot of seva to Shri Vidyatma Swamiji, and then a lot of seva to Shri Subhinendra Tirtha Swamiji. And so I wish to compliment him on that. So my good friend Sheshu came in, Prakash. He came in, and so I kind of heard a little bit of what he was going to say. What was it, 3 days back or so? And so when he came in, Dasha Avara Janma Anta, what the Acharya says, I was joking to him. It's kind of like somebody saying, I'm going to exhaust all YouTube videos by looking at them tomorrow. But by tomorrow, the YouTube videos have doubled. So it's like the karma is like your YouTube videos, right? So the YouTube videos are never going to end. And you cannot say, I'm going to wait for a while and then clear out and then get through the buffer of YouTube videos, right? So the karma is growing at that exponential rate. It's a geometric progression greater than 1, the multiplicative factor. So how are we going to do this karma? And for the amount of karma that we are doing, we are now debating whether there is Kartrutva or not. So on the one hand, we are saying there is infinite karma happening. On the other hand, we are sitting here and thinking, are we actually doing something or not? How could we be thinking about whether we are doing something or not if we are also saying there is karma which is increasing at a very exponential rate? And that's a very difficult question that has been put to us. The second thing that Prakash said, which was very interesting also, is if the jiva, which has a minute amount of capability, and all of it is being done by the Bhagavan, it's kind of like the jiva is now getting the worst of all worlds, right? So the jiva has the responsibility to do some stuff, but has none of the authority to do anything. It's kind of like a classic corporate world where you have all the responsibility with no authority at all. And so at the end of the next 10 minutes or so, I hope to kind of like give my a little bit of expression to what my thinking is. Not that it is conclusive or anything like that. And then I look forward to hearing all the other lectures that are to follow. So one way which I think about this is, you guys have heard about the term, right? Energy, matter cannot be created nor destroyed. Similarly, there is a spiritual matter, the soul, which also can neither be created nor destroyed. And they are orthogonal to each other, right? So the energy matter is on one plane and the spiritual matter is in the other plane, and they're completely and totally distinct from each other. So says the Acharya, right? Jada and Jiva Bheda. But what is happening is the Jiva is juxtaposing what he is with what the matter is, and then getting caught up, and then we call that as abhimana. So the jiva is getting caught up in this material. It's kind of like a person's thinking that he is the car, and then the car gets hurt, and then the person is getting very upset. And you need to be upset, but you don't need to be overly upset, right? So that is what all this abhimana niyantrana is there, abhimana tyaga they call it. So this abhimana is what is causing the jiva, which is completely and totally distinct and orthogonal from the Jada, Prakriti. And so there is yet another entity which is completely orthogonal to these two entities, which is the Paramatma. That's what he said, Dvameva Purusho Loke, that shloka. So there is an entity which we are now saying is orthogonal to the Jada, orthogonal to the Jivas, who is now not suffering from this Abhimana at all. And that is the Paramatma entity. So the Paramatma is an entity
not the Jada, not the Jiva. The Jiva is different from the Jada in the sense that the Jiva has the sentience. It has the dosha of Abhimana, which can only be got when you are sentient. But the Deva is orthogonal to them and it doesn't have the dosha of Abhimana. In fact, the Acharya says there is no dosha in Bhagavan of any kind. So that is his claim where he starts, Devam Narayanam Natva Sarva Dosha Vivarjitam. So there is no dosha in Narayana, not now, not ever, in any form whatsoever, and Paripurnam. So he has all the positive attributes in its fullest extent, now and forever. And they don't change. And so when you have an entity that we are positing, and we need to prove all of that as we go through with the Vedas and with the Gita and all of the other entities. But assuming that such an entity exists, the Bhagavan we call it, that entity, which is controlling the whole entire universe and is sentient and does not have this Vaishamya and Nairghanya. Those are the two potential big attributes. So the entity is sort of omnibenevolent. The omnibenevolent entity neither is partial nor is unkind. So because the entity doesn't desire anything from anyone, the Bhagavan is complete and excellent in all of his attributes, doesn't desire anything from anybody. So therefore he can afford to be completely and totally impartial towards anyone. All of us desire something from somebody, so we make sure that we don't irritate this person, that person, this person. So we go through this entire calculus of minimizing the ajita in the world. But the Bhagavan doesn't have to do that because he is completely full in all excellences. The second thing is, because he is full in all excellences, he can now afford to be benevolent. So I used to have this very good friend of mine, Jayesh Bhatt, who used to be a good friend for Vivek and myself. His father used to work for the Maharaja of Baroda. I asked him once, like, how is Maharaja of Baroda? And he said, oh, he is a very polite guy, but he can afford to be polite. The guy is loaded. So the richest people are all kind of like polite because they got nothing to lose and, they're all polite. So adikine now here we say the Dasa makes fun of it, and then he says, Huwa taruvara manike hulla taruva. He is not worried about bringing hullu or huwa or anything like that because he's not in the same plane. Which is the reason why the Bhagavan has been praised in these different ways, and the Dasa Rayaru praises in sometimes in humor, sometimes nindastuti, sometimes in devotion and all of those things. So the question that we are faced with right now is, are we a doer or not? And if we are a doer, what kind of just desserts do we get? And then what is the structure of liberation? These are all very difficult questions. So I'm going to give you some pointers for you to think about, and then over a period of time, getting access to gurus like this, you can refine your understanding over many, many years actually. So one of the ways for you to think about is, if somebody has complete authority, does he really need to have any responsibility whatsoever, right? If he has complete and total authority, isn't that the definition of complete total independence and self-dependence? Why would such a person be caught up in the sense of responsibility? And that is the case where the Lord is, that he has complete and total authority. But one of the things that the Vedas say is that his authority, he has decided not to exert whimsically. That is why the Granthas say, Dravyam kalacha karmascha sohao jivayevacha yadanugraha nasanti yadupekshaya. Yeah. So the supreme entity could have made matter not existing. So he could have created a rule that said the matter and energy can be destroyed, but he didn't. That the spiritual entities could be destroyed, but he didn't. And the reason why he did that is because, as we said, he's omnibenevolent. He doesn't really, whether the people exist or not is the least of his worries. So that's why he'd much rather just let them exist. And that is basically the kindness of the Lord is what we are living off of right now, essentially. So this Lord, who has already decided not to make anyone disappear, right? Like some of the regimes do sometimes. In his regime, not for him. He's never angry, right? Because anger happens when you want to do something and you can't do it, is when you get frustrated and upset and angry. And the Lord is never frustrated and upset and angry because all of his wishes come true. In fact, they have always been true. So therefore, he does not have any reason to make anyone disappear. And so therefore, he doesn't make anyone disappear. And so therefore, all of the people are always existing all the time. And that is what we call swabhava. The existence of a entity based on its own intrinsic nature is swabhava. And what the Lord is doing is, over a long period of time, he is letting that swabhava understand and express itself, because the amount of ignorance that we have is so dark that the jiva doesn't know himself actually. Forget about God, right? So the jiva is in such that abhimana that I was talking about, and all of the, like the Acharya, Bananjaya Acharya, he calls it baileys, or the intricacies, the net that is there is so tight. Yatha ulbe is what Bhagavan Krishna describes in the third. So the jiva, the Gita compares it to a little baby fetus inside the mother's womb with the darkness. It's so dark that the jiva cannot see himself itself. So the Lord, what he is doing as a part of sadhana is giving us a little bit of light at each and every time, so that the jiva can first find itself and then see the Lord. And that is what is the aparoksha. The epiphany that we talk about is the aparoksha, where the jiva, through its sadhana, is able to see a little bit, because it's not for the Lord to give the light everything all at once, because the jiva would be blinded probably. So everything has to be done in its own dose. And that is where the sadhana of the jiva comes in, where even though the Lord is doing the work in the Kartrutva Adhikarana, that is what he was talking about, Karta Shastrarthavatvat Om, he says. So that's why Jayatith Muni actually makes a joke in there. He says, why is the Shastra? Is it Aranya Rodhana, he asks. Is it a cry in the forest, is what he's asking. Because for whom is this Shastra being written? And the Shastra is being written not for God, because we just said that he has complete authority, no responsibility. It's not for the Mukta Jivas, because they have already passed the exam. It is not for the Jada, because the Jada has no sentience at all. So for whom has the Shastra been written? It is written for the Jivas. But now you say the Shastras have been written for the Jivas, and you're also saying the Jivas don't have any independence whatsoever. So what gives, right? That is the central question that we're having. You don't have any independence. The Lord has all the independence. The Shastra has been given for the Jivas. Why has the Shastra been given for the Jivas, even though the Lord is doing everything? Is we need to think about Shastra. First of all, the correct answer to this is Jiva is going to answer it next. But that is the correct answer. But stay tuned for the answer. The way you want to think, the way we want to think about this is, these are all waystones that the Shastras have been given. So the waystones that have been given is like you're sitting in a car, you're going towards, I don't know where you're going, like Greenville maybe, and you're being driven in a bus, you got no control over the bus, you have no control over the driver, and you have a whole bunch of signs that are coming up your way. And one would hope that those signs are all pointing towards Greenville, because if they're pointing somewhere else, it's not like you can do a lot right now in this exact moment in time. And so the Lord is actually the one who is driving the bus for us and getting us through these different places. So the injunctions of the Shastra, the prohibitions in the Shastra are a gauge for you to know whether your Sahaja Prakriti, Sahajam karma kaunteya, like what he's saying, the sahaja karma that you're doing, is it making you happy? Is it like really fulfilling you? And if it is, then you're going in the right direction, at least that is right for you. Because one of the things that we are going to say is, the swabhava itself is different for different individuals. Each individual will find different things appealing. And the appealment of the individual different things are now broadly classified as sattva, rajas and tamas, different from the sattva, rajas and tamas of the prakriti, which is just like you have a sattva, rajas, tamas on the x-axis, the prakriti There is sattva, rajas, tamas of the jivas also, different. But one is the jiva sattva, rajas, tamas, and this prakriti sattva, rajas, tamas, which are all interacting with each other. And as you are doing various activities, prohibitions and injunctions, if you feel like you are buying into it and liking it and wanting more of it, then that is what is appealing to you and that is what is your swabhava. So the Lord is wanting to do, what he wants to do is what they asked Michelangelo, right? How did you create David? And what Michelangelo said, I took out everything which was not David. And that's what he did. And so what the Lord is doing is he is taking everything else out of it so that your jiva is now going to be available to you. And you can see your jiva, only then can you see the Bhagavanta. And at that time, they say, in Harikatamrita actually, they say, Minchinante Bedagua, like that he will say. So they say that it's a flash of an epiphany where all of this sort of makes sense. That's going to happen, they say, at some point in time. But what I am trying to say here is the Bhagavanta who is having karuna and is not partial. Such a Bhagavanta, we should feel comfortable our fate is in his hands. If there is anybody where we want to place our fate, that would be the only one person. Because one of the worries that we have most of the time is, what if I am doing something good and nobody is there to see me do good? What's the point in doing it? It's like George Costanza saying, do I need to pay a tip? What if the barista is not looking at me paying the tip? What's the point of paying the tip, right? I don't get the benefit of having paid. Such is not going to happen in Bhagavanta's case. Whatever you do, the Lord is there to see it because he is. We were discussing it, so I'm going to recite this one shloka because I had always wanted to do it. Your shloka. Eko devaha sarva bhuteshu gudhaha sarva vyapi sarva bhutantaratma karma dhyaksha sarva bhute bhutadhivasaha sakshi cheta kevalo nirgunascha. Sakshi. Because he is sakshi. He is there every single spot. So whatever work you do not do in your mind, outside your mind is being seen and being objectively looked at. And so my thought is, we don't really have freedom, but we still do stuff. And if we are going to be doing stuff and somebody is going to be evaluating, I'd much rather somebody like that evaluate me. And so with that, I'm going to conclude this. Some of the answers are available, but some of them are not. So I'm looking forward to hearing GV speak. And
I want to hear more about Jayakrishna.
Hello, Venkatesh. You didn't answer his question yet, though.
Which is?
His predisposed.
Oh yeah, I answered it to him, but we'll see. That was the one that hooked him, by the way.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'll answer it to you.
आपादमौलिपर्यन्तं गुरूणाम् आकृतिं स्मरेत् तेन विघ्नाः प्रणश्यन्ति सिद्धिं चित मनोरथाः. So my namaskars to Pujya Shri Puthige Matha, Swami Ji, Subrahendra Tirthu, and then my humble obeisance to my Gurukulu Keshav Rao and my examiner. So I was telling Venkatesh, we came all the way to Atlanta just to get grilled. It's not a fair thing. We thought we are coming out for and having a jolly trip. So now we are here taking an exam. Okay, we will do our best. He's going to do it through me. So one of the things was confounding was that, like even both Sesha Prakash and this one also like introduced and then it's not introduced, but I'm going to say it again and then come back to the solution. So one of the things that we see right in Gita versus that's not going to go anywhere else, right? At kind of one time, so Krishna says, right? Na kartrutvam na karmani lokasya sujati prabhu na karma pala sanyogam bhavastu pravartate. So he's saying that no kartrutva, no karma, right? Whom it is said for, right? So the Prabhu is mentioned, right? But the Prabhutva for, Jiva has Prabhutva over Jada. So it will, Anvaya for Jiva also, right? And the Lokas, like Swavastu Pravartate has to be only for Jiva, right? And karma, na karma pala sanyogam for only for Jiva, right? All those. So it is for Jiva. So it says, hey, no kartrutvam, no karmani. Hey, there is a question of doing anything, right? But then again he says, karmanyadikaraste ma paleshe kadachana ma karma pala hetu matyo angasta karmani. Right? So he said you cannot be without, without attachment of the karma. So you have to be doing karma all this. And then even Jayakrishna said, right? Nahi kashyat kshanamapi jatadashana karma. So you cannot be even without doing karma at any moment, at any time, for anybody. Right? So with that one saying, so we have to kind of put these things together. So one says that, you have to do karma, and the whole Gita says, yuddhasva. Right? It's a whole message for Arjuna is to do your swadharma. That is the central message. So it's do. And then here says, no kartrutva for you. Right? So how do we kind of reconcile all of that? Right? Okay, then we are saying that, okay, if Jiva is not doing it, then all these karmas he is saying, like YouTube videos, they are all accumulating, and then Seshwar said that, right? Even if you think that you can exhaust it with some many other janmas and everything, it's impossible, right? So that means it is all accumulated. Then who is doing karma? If Jiva is not doing karma, right? And then we ask, okay, then Jada cannot do karma because it is Jada, inanimate matter. Then we ask, okay, then God is there, right? Then he is also saying, Name partha asti kartavyam. Right? But if you look at it as that, but then he quickly kind of clarifies that, okay, even though, and then we say, na anaptam avaka varte eva karmani. Okay? Manusha partha sarvashaha. Right? So he's saying, even though that here it means I don't have to do, but I still do. Okay, so at least one is established, he is doing it, right? And he says that if I don't do karma, right? Uzide me lokaha, right? Nakuryan karma chetaham. Sankarasya chakartaha upahanyam hima praja. If I don't do anything, right? All these things, nothing will exist. Even the creation will not exist, right? So all those things are going to. So at least one is established. So God is definitely doing karma, right? Now the question is Jiva doing karma or not, right? So, but then what is the point in saying that do karma, another worse thing? And then Venkatesh pointed out, right, the whole Shastra becomes meaningless, right? Because it is for them to say that we have to do karma and everything, right? Otherwise, it will become like, shouting in the forest kind of stuff, right? It will become, there's no utility for Shastra at the end of the day. So that means, right, it is for Jiva to do the karma. So how do you say nakartutvam karmani, right? So then one has to say, no, you have kartrutva, you don't have independent kartrutva, right? Then it will all kind of come together, right? So that means what happens? God definitely karta, right? Jivopi karta. So here it means, okay, you are also a karta, but in a limited, in a not independent way, right? Okay, then both are doers then, right? But then then who has the real agency, right? Who is the owner? So because out of karma, then all these papa punyas and everything come. So whom does it go to, right? So it has to, is it like going to God only because he is a primary mover? Because you are talking about this one as a dependent mover, right? Or are they kind of splitting some, 50-50, 70-30, right? And all those kind of stuff, right? But then, then for this, Shesha already answered, right? Hey, name karma palaspraha. Don't karma, karma pala doesn't come to me, right? So he said that it's not, because why? I don't have to do it. I'm doing it for others, not for my swa priyojana. I'm doing it for para priyojana. If you're doing it for a para priyojana, then you don't get bondage, right? If you do swa priyojana, you get bondage. So since God is doing for para priyojana, he doesn't get bondage. So God is out, right? So that means all this papa punya has to go to only Jiva only. So how can a dependent doer get all this baggage, right? He gave an example of a king and a soldier. He asked soldier to go and punish those people who didn't follow the law, right? Those soldiers go and punish them. They are dependent doers, right? But then are they going to get the sin for punishment, even if they punish the wrong guy, right? So then how is it that they get the punya and papa, right? It has to go only to the king, but then king is said that he can't get, right? So how is this guy going to get the sin and all those things, right? Here is where the trick comes, right? So here is Venkatesh alluded to it. I'm just kind of putting it in a different context to make it this one. So this our guy Jiva, right? He is kind of from the Anadi Kala, he is coming with this ajnana, right? So though the Vastu Sthiti is, the actual Sthiti is, God is doing it through Jiva and then action is getting done. So there is a Parpal Karma Pala comes, right? Then it has to go to whoever claims that I am doing it, right? So God is doing it and everything, but this guy Jiva in between comes and says, hey, I am doing it. Because that's how we feel, isn't it, every day? Whatever we do, normal things and everything, right? Who is claiming responsibility? Who is claiming the ownership of that one, right? We are. I ate, I did this one, I drove, I did this one. Whenever you come in between and then you can claim that is really not yours, but then when you say claim this thing, so the God says that I'm not going to take all the baggage. Since you are claiming it, I'm going to give it to you. Right? So that is how the baggage comes along. Right? So the Jiva due to Ajnana and this association that Venkatesh talked about, because of Abhimana, right? Since he falsely claims it, so he gets to have all the Punya Papas too. Right? When the same person with some jnana and everything understands truly, I am not the doer, right? God is doing it through me and I am only a dependent doer. Yajnaya acharata karma, right? So I am doing it all because of as an aradhana. Yajnaya means Vishnu, aradhana for this one. Then samagram praviliyate. Then at that time you don't get bondage. Right? At that time you don't get bondage. Because then it is not a swa prayojana anymore. Right? So that is the key. So in this one, so that's why Krishna is kind of pounding on the selfless karma all the time, right? That is nishkama karma, right? That is when you don't get a baggage. So through nishkama karma, you get knowledge, and through knowledge you get aproksha, and then eventual release from the birth and death and all those things. So the key is abandoning this abhimana. So once that one goes, then you become an effective doer. He is the actual doer. You become a media. Then at that time, like as Bhagavan said, right? Nimitta matram bhavisabhya sakshi. Right? You are just a nimitta in that one, right? So then the question comes, okay, then if we become just a nimitta, right? He is the one doing and all those things, right? And all those things. What is the difference between us and a jada? Right? Because we have a prabhutva over jada and then we get work done through machines, in other words, right? If God is also like doing it as like a machine, right? Isvara sarva bhutanam hrideshe arjuna tishtati brahmayan sarva bhutani yantrarudani mayaya. So if he is sitting in our heart and then making us work like a machine, like like round and round and everything, making us do and everything, then what is the difference between us and a jada? Right? So if we are the medium through which the God acts, what is the difference between us and jada? So that question comes, right? So at that time, so jada doesn't have this abhimana, this jnana, right? And all those things, right? It doesn't have experience. But wherein the jiva has an experience. So the God, even though he does the work through us, but he gives the experience to us. The anubhava is won by jiva only, right? So at that time, this kind of, for this anubhava, is jiva is only there, right? So whenever this, so then there was the purpose. It is through the anubhava, as Venkatesh pointed out, over the years, you get through anubhava, you basically get maturity through that. And then eventually discover yourself. And then Paramatma and those. So this anubhava is feed into you like a dose that as per your yogyata, that is what it is. God is doing work as per your yogyata. The dosage is also measured as per yogyata over the time. He gives a little by little of this anubhava to you and everything through which you eventually get knowledge, right? And maturity and then on aproksha-jnana and all those things. I will just leave you with final two examples of this one, how it is done, right? If both are the doers, how it is done. And then, but the Anubhava goes to him. So there is both examples are coming from Harikathamrita sir. So what is like Kolukutare, right? So there is a father and a small son, baby, right? Doesn't have this thing. So he gives a stick, and then like it's like imitation of like a horse. So he makes as though the child riding on a horse, but actually it is the father standing behind who is doing all the actions and everything. But then what does the child thinks? I'm riding a horse. I'm doing it. But who is really doing it? It's the Lord. Who is getting the experience? It is the child. Right? It is like that. Right? That is one other example. The other one is Sandhya Vandana thing. So when a father teaches Sandhya Vandana to just a brahmachari, right? 7-8 years old, doesn't have much maturity and all those things. So he teaches all the slokas, and then the child just repeats after father. But finally when it comes to Abhivadaya, so the father says, now tell your name. Right? So that all the phala will go to the child. By saying his name, so he does the arpana, so that all the phala the child gets, but who did all the things and everything? It is the father. Right? So with these two examples, I hope it becomes clear as to how the mechanism of how this thing is done, right? So that then there are both doers. So where is an independent doer, that's a dependent doer, who gets the anubhava, why he gets the anubhava, why the other one doesn't. I hope it all comes out in this one, right? In that one. So the other one that I want to talk about, which what I am prepared, but then the examiner put me and my other fellow students put me on a spot to go to the kind of other ones. So another one is about, if God is doing it, all of that and everything, right? He is a prime doer, obviously doing it, right? So we said that, so God is as Antaryami in us, He is making us do all of that, right? In other ones. So God's presence, so is everywhere, right? And all of that. And sometimes, we kind of walked with the shoe, but then we left the shoe over there, and then came here, and then we did namaskara to Krishna, we did namaskara to our, senior people, and then, jnanis and all those things, right? All those things. Why I didn't do namaskara to my shoes? God is there too. God is here too, right? And all those things. Why not there and then why in here? Because our Lord chooses to put His presence in a special manner in certain places. That is called Vibhuti. Right? Bhuti means presence. Vibhuti means Vikrishta, Vishesha, presence. Right? So the Lord has this characteristic of this kind of, I am present everywhere, but in certain places, I am going to be specially present. What does that mean? Specially present, right? Means I'm going to put more of my power in that one. And then through that media, so I'm going to kind of, show the brilliance or whatever. So that is where the entire Vibhuti Yoga in the Krishna, he say, right? Hey, I am, like a Himalayan, right? Stavaranam Himalaya. Aidanam Aham Vajram, right? Kavina Ushana Kavi. Pandavanam Bananjaya. So all those things. So what he's basically saying is, hey, whichever that you see has some greatness, right? Or some abundance of exaltance and everything. Know that because I have put my special presence there. Yat yat vibhuti massatvam srimad murchitameva va tattadeva avagachatvam mamatejo amsha shambhavam. Right? Mamatejo amsha shambhavam. Because I put my special presence in there, they all become exalted, right? Not everybody is same, right? There are some, some people go to Ivy League, some people go to community college. Why? Right? So because God chose that as adhisthana to put the vidya in them as much more in kind of others. So, but then we have to ask, hey, is it not Parapaksha? Right? Why did he choose them and not me? Right? Another ones. So then he himself saying, hey, I know that you guys are going to cast me. So Krishna himself says, Samoham sarva bhuteshu nadvesho asti na priyaha. Right? So everybody is equal to me. I don't have any hatred for others. And I don't like somebody more than others. Everybody is samam for me. So then is kind of, God is kind of sama in the sense and everything, then still it begs the question, why him? Right, understand? Then it has, if he is treating everyone, that means he is putting more on other ones. Consider this example, right? What does sama means in here? Okay? Samatva means, like for example, let us take a class. There is a teacher, there's a bunch of students, and the teacher gives an exam, right? Some people are given A, some people are given F, right?
Oh my God, that's going to happen now?
I don't know what I'm getting.
He's projecting himself.
Okay, so some people are given that, right? So then if it is samam, then everybody should get A or everybody should get F. Why there is a distinction between A and F? Right? So that is because the person who put in the effort and with intelligence and all those things answer the questions, right, will get A. The person who did not put in the effort or probably didn't understand the questions even or whatever because lack of intelligence and other effort is getting an F. Right? Now, is it a teacher's fault to give that guy an A, to give this guy an F? Would you call that one partiality? He did the right thing, isn't he? That is some. Even though he treated people differently, right? It is because of their yogyata very different, right? Their intrinsic abilities were different. So he is doing, when Venkatesh and Prakash said that he is doing work according to their intrinsic capability, this is what it means. So in that way, he is sama. So that is sama.
But why did they get different capabilities?
So that is what it is. It is one of those anadi stuff. And it is ever, forever, right? It is ever present and all those things because that is how it is. They are there all the time, right? Because in Bhagavad Gita itself, they says that, what is the... Huh?
What is the concept?
Eternity of Diva.
Natya
Natyaham jatanasham. Matve me janadipa. So these souls are ever existing, right? So then again, if these souls are all the same, then how do we explain all this plurality? If everybody is same, everybody will be propelled in the same way. Because if God is kind of being someone, and if he is propelling everybody according to their yogyata, and if everybody is same, then there would not be any, you would not see any plurality, right? In fact, you could see no two persons are the same, right? So that will serve as an indicator that people have to be intrinsically different.
But if that does not explain why, if God has said that I don't have partiality, and then if at all if two are different, did he create them unequal?
Hey, nobody created them.
Nobody created them. They exist from eternal times, like that.
So these souls existed Allah as the God is infinite. The souls are also infinite.
For infinite time.
Infinite time.
In terms of time.
Ever existing
Eternal time.
in the past and is going to exist in the future. So that is what that.
What confuses me is that then does that mean that they are separate from God and God has no control over those?
No, he has control.
Yes, control.
Right? Dravyam karma chakalascha swabhavo jiva
Explain
eva.
that too.
Right?
Understand.
In that way. So he has a control in the sense he can change the swabhava, but he doesn't do it. Otherwise it will be like, then all this partiality and everything comes. Why he chose to do somebody and why he didn't choose somebody. So the partiality and all
does
that.
the jiva have the capability to, whether it is dependent or independent? You said there is no independence, that's fine. So the jiva that is at a lower capability through karma can actually assign or probably achieve a better capability.
It will get to the. Okay, go ahead.
Oh, no, we're not gonna. What we'll do is let him complete this one.
Okay.
Then what we'll do is we'll answer these questions at the end of his session. Okay. That way, that will complete, and then we want to have an interactive session, so we will go through that.
Okay.
So
Okay.
let him complete that.
All right, I'm almost there. So it is basically like, that's what I'm saying. So that means if the Adhisthana itself has to be like a different, right? Because just for the example that I gave in between the kind of A student and then F student, right? So the equality means, treating as per Yogyata itself is actually what the Samam thing means. Or some, So when he says Samam Bhuteshu, and then other one is if let us say that if God is attached to this Adhisthana or this medium, right, through which he matters, right? But the medium goes through all this, we go through suffering, happiness, and all those things and everything, right? Is God is kind of, doing it, all those things and everything. Does it kind of, affect him, right? So if he's going to do all of that and everything, right, there are some success and failures and everything, right? We get sad, we get happy. Okay, does he get the same thing or whatever? Then again, he says that, no, it doesn't happen, right? So he says, Mastani sarva bhutani nachaham teshu avasthitaha, right? So and then he turns back and saying that nachamastani bhutani, right? Pashyame yogam aishwaram, right? What does it mean is Mastani sarva bhutani. So all things are in me, right? Here it says in the sense that they are saying all in me, right? That means they are all dependent on me. Okay? In that one. I am not in them. Right? Nachaham teshu avasthitaha. Right? I am not in them, meaning that I am not dependent on them. They are all dependent on me. I am not dependent on them. And then he comes back and then says that Nachamastani bhutani. Right? And then he says that I am not in them. He first said that, they are all in me, and then I am not in them, right? And then all those things. So isn't it kind of contradictory or whatever? See, the kind of Gita, lot of verses, few verses were like this. So if you look at it at the face value from the top, right? So like I told, right, when one place you say do karma, other one says na kartrutvam na karmani. So you have to be very careful about how do you take all these things. So that is why, like there is this, our Acharya like Madhvacharya have given Bhashya. Okay, how do you interpret this one correctly, right? So that is what Acharya did, and then thanks to our Keshavarji, so because we don't have our own ability to go and understand Acharya, so Keshavarji kind of did the explanation to us, and for which we are ever grateful. So here it says Rachamastani Bhutani means saying that, hey, whatever that, any jivas or any jadas and everything, they're all made of these three gunas. He's talking about that sattva, tamas, rajas and everything, right? And all those things. So he says that even though that they are all dependent on me and then I am doing and all of those things, right? But then those things don't touch me, right? Okay, hey, how is it all possible? How are you doing all of these things? So he is actually simply Pashyame Yogam Aishwaram. Okay, see that it is my specialty basically, right? That is why I am God. So I can do all of this. Achintya Adbhuta Shakti, right? That is God, right? Nobody else has it. Right? Only he can do all of these things and everything. So it just stops right there, and then there's no more questions on that one. And then even for this Triguna, he was kind of asking me, right, before. Ye cha eva satika bhavaha rajasasta tamasasche matte eva iti tan vidhi, right? Natu aham teshu te mayi. Right? So I answered that one. You asked me, right? So here again it says that there is this three gunas and everything, right? All of them, matte eva tan vidhi. They all come from me only. Meaning that is not, that's also like, part of the Prakriti, right? Prakriti Dravyam. So it is another eternal entity. But he controls them, right? He didn't create them, but he controls them. In that sense, they are dependent and he is independent. Okay? So he controls them, right? So he has a sway over them. And then when he says they come from me only, it is Niyamaka in that way. So he controls them. Natu aham teshu. He said that I am not in them. So that all the trigunas don't touch me. I am not in them. Te mai. But they are in me in the sense they are dependent on me in that case. So he was asking that question. So with all that, so this is the special characteristic of the Lord. So he is the real doer. And then he is kind of doing it through us. We, due to our ajnana, ever since, I don't know when it started, it is anadi, right? There's no question of when it started. So it is. So we had to come out of it, right? And then he was thinking about how do we come out of it in the sense, he is knowing that Naham Karta, Hari Karta, Tat Puja Karma Chakelam, Tatapi Makrita Pujata, Prasadena Anyata, Tat Bhakti Tat Phalam Mahyam. So by knowing that, saying that only Hari is doing, we are not the doer. We are, he is doing it through us. It is just, getting the knowledge and through the anubhava. It is through that, then we have to slowly kind of dissociate ourselves from claiming the false ownership, right? And then putting it on him, because he says that nothing is going to touch him, right? So putting it on him, saying that, hey, you made us do it and all those things. It is for you and all those things. That is a way to kind of get out of it and everything. So how does it so we all have like so even though it is very difficult on our everyday life, at every moment, we don't realize that. We are only thinking that we are only doing it and all those things, right? So we don't realize it. So how do we even at least start practicing it or whatever, right? The other one, see, at least all of us are everyone has their 15 minutes of fame, sometime or other, right? Or sometimes, we might have said, in our work or our home somewhere, we did something outstanding, at least once, here and there, right? Or whatever. At least we can say that, hey, at that time, because it became outstanding, right? Because it became outstanding, it is because at that time, Lord was present, especially in me at that time, who made me do that. At least at those moments when we know, we recall, yeah, I did something fantastic. At least immediately come to senses and then say that, okay, he was able to do that thanks to him. He did it, he chose me to do it. So again, Madhashpa Kurutarpanam. So again, Arpana back to him. So that is a way that we can from this understanding and all those things, that one has to come. So even if it doesn't come every day or whatever, at least on those special occasions or whatever, so we can do this one, Arpana back to Lord. So that will be help us come out of it. So with that, I hope I answered whatever the questions. Guruji, now he's going to come and tell me how all we did it. So, thank you so much. Like this, ಮುಗಿಸ್ಬಿಡಿ
ಇಲ್ಲ
ಇದಕ್ಕೆ ಉಪಸಂಹಾರ ಮಾಡಿ
go to I will
first of all the audience hold a score for all the three candidates. Nothing more than
at least I am not qualified to even scoring.
If you have any questions, you can feel free to ask.
Oh, he will answer everything.
No, I don't have all answers, but at least I know there are questions. We'll touch upon at least one point from each of you. So, one mentioned Yatolvena Vrito Garbha, right? How the womb is a growing embryo in a womb, how it is totally in dark. That is how Ajnana is. This comes in a context of explaining how there are three types of covering to an individual soul. In that one, he has given three examples. And this is one example he has given. Yatolvena Vrita is the third worst case scenario. That one. There is a better scenario. For that one, he says correct. He says just as Dhumena Avrito, and he says that is just as a smoke that's covering a fire. For great jnanis, all his teacher has to do is that fire will start burning again. Kim Pashuk Purvadeha was all it was needed for someone like Jayakrishna. So we are saying the covering is very loose, in those cases. All it needs a little nudge and boom, it will come off. Like Purandaradas. One incident was enough. It happened. Then that is the best case scenario. Then there are medium cases. He says it's like a darpana, that is A mirror which is spotty, a dirty mirror. It is visible in some spots, it's not visible in some other spots. You need effort to clean the mirror. Sometimes when you try to clean, like with your windshield, sometimes you make it worse. Even when you try to clean your, I'm sure it has happened to all of you. So mirrors are also like that. So, which means Vedanta Deshika has written, because it takes effort to clean that mirror for it to reflect again properly, and then so there is an effort needed. That's the medium kind of. Oof is not going to help that. That only in the case of fire. The third one is like a child or an embryo growing up in a womb. The ajnana is so dense, just as a baby that never see light, sitting in darkness, completely in darkness. So also there are certain souls which do not have a way out of it. The thing is, many people, you ask the question, why discriminate between these three souls? You are not, people who ask that question, or neither the jnanis, they don't ask that question. Why God has discriminated in this world? They don't ask that, or they don't even get that question. Then again, there are others who don't care about anything. The total tamasic people. They're out to destroy this world. They don't get that question. They don't care if there is a jnani, or they just want to know how he can make a profit out of it. Or probably how to destroy a system for his benefit. That's all he thinks about. So there are two extreme people, the Sattvikas on one side, they don't get a question. The total tamasics, they also don't get a question. People who are in between, which is most of us sitting here, the Rajasika kind of people, who have both. We look at the Sattvic people, we want to be like them. We can't be. We don't want to be like these people, but then it can't be. We also do our share of lying and cheating, and we do our part of. We've all done that, I guess, at some point. So what I'm trying to say is, why he is not just, why he made some people great and some not, is a question that Rajasikas get. Neither of these two get, right? Because they accept as it is given to them. The Sattvikas always, they don't even change the world. A lot of people ask, India had so many jnanis, you say, rishis, who could do anything. How come they didn't even design an air conditioner? It had to come from the West. Udupi, which saw so many jnanis, it's so hot in Udupi. Have you been in summer to one of those places? Oh God. And so somebody with all the knowledge they had, they could have come up with a system wherein they could have cooled a room, and kept everybody comfortable. But it had to be designed by some scientist out in the West who had nothing to do with Veda, who had nothing to do with it. He did it. All the creative people, right, are Rajasikas. Rajo Ragatmakam Vidhi, as Krishna says, right? So only a Rajas, one who is a Rajasika, he is passionate about getting it done. So he is after research, all scientists, all technologies, all innovations, it's all because of Rajasikas. These Sattvikas, they accept as it is. That's it. They are Sattvikas. So they don't create anything for it. They will write a work describing the greatness. That they will do well. But as far as, that is how they help the world. Okay? Whereas a Rajasika would worry about, how can I better my situation? That's one. Right? And then of course a Tamasika would, how can I make a profit out of all this? He doesn't care about whether it's hot or cold. He is worried about himself. That's his selfishness. That's one point. Then let me also take one interesting shloka from the Gita, of course. Sadrusham cheshtate swasyaha prakriter jnanamanapi prakritim yanti bhutani nigraha kim karishyati. It's a very powerful question there. What he is saying is, each one is, behaving according to their own nature. That's what we all talked about, svabhava, nature. Nigraha kinkarishyati. What is control is going to do here? That is how it appears to be stated. Well, the very first one to write commentary on this was Shankara, Adi Shankara, in the 7th century. So he had to, in his Gita Bhashya, he said, well, this Prakriti means nature, right? The 5 elements, Pancha Mahabhutas, and the Sattva, Rajas, Tamo Guna, which is Trigunatmaka Prakriti, all that is there. And Krishna has said, Mattaha Pratak Vidaha, etc. All the 8, they're all mine, he has declared already. So this kind of control, Nigraha means control. Although I have control over Prakriti, Nigraha, what is my control going to do? That's how Shankara has interpreted it. Well, there is a problem here. Both Ramanuja and Madhva, they disagree with such an interpretation because now Krishna is expressing some kind of weakness here. To have any weakness is a dosha, is a defect in God. By definition, God is defectless. And therefore they said, no, that's not what is meant. Then what is meant by it? Somebody still had to explain it. So next was 12th century, Ramanuja, Shri Madhvacharya, he took it up. Then he says, Nigraha kinkarishyati, what is control though? What is the control we are talking here? He said, well, Shastras are there. Somebody has written do's and don'ts. They're all written, they're all well, we read that, study that, we heard lectures and everything. Yes, but what Nigraha means control. What can the control mentioned in those books can do? Nothing. Because people are behaving according to their nature. Shastra can say whatever. So he kind of cut off the relationship between all the teaching of the Shastras on one side and all the people who are behaving as they please. So that is what Krishna is saying. No, Shriman Madhva said, no, that's not true either. Because while it is largely true that people will behave as they wish, like we have been seeing around us, and Shastras have been saying who knows what they are saying anyways, the point here is there are people who do study Shastra and correct themselves. That's also there. You can't say, you can't say everybody is like that. Yes, there are people, in spite of all the teaching, still they do, they don't listen. That's always there, right? Like Prahalada, how many times his father was told? But then he wouldn't listen because his nature was like that. And therefore Shastras are there, but there are people who will listen to Shastra. And there are also people who won't listen to it. That has always been there. It's like a buffet. This whole world is like a buffet, you can say. Like in any buffet, we always kind of tend to go to a certain section of the buffet where we are comfortable with what we have. And that's why they make so many items. So this whole world is created like that. Please remember, we are not the only ones here. That's why I was telling in the afternoon, your Vedanta should start in a jail, not in a matha. Right? Because it's easy to explain in the midst of jnanis or knowledgeable people, good people like all of you sitting here. But if you go to jail, you see the worst of humanity there, heinous crimes. And why did they get into that situation? So if your Vedanta is not able to explain there, what is the point? Right? Anyway, so coming back to this, so Shriman Madhva says, in this situation, Nigraha kinkarishyati, you are controlling, because please remember, we are all creatures of habit. Right? That's why I said the very first example, if you are a carpenter making a chair, right? Now that has affected you internally. Although you made a chair external to you and the chair is gone, somebody bought it from you. But that chair has already brought some changes in you. that expertise or whatever. Now, you want to make more such chairs, because they are selling good. You want to do more and more of that. So this karma does that. You want to do more and more of the same, because now you are getting attached to that. Yeah, that's called abhyasa. So you or repetition. That abhyasa means you want to do it again and again because you are pleased with it. Similarly, you hate something and so you don't want to do that. You don't want to do that like that. So you want to stay away from something. You want to go in this one direction or the other. Whatever is pleasing to you and not pleasing to you. Hita, ahita, karana. That's the Shastra terminology. Vedavyasa again says, if a human being could himself do all this, then everybody would have done what is hita to themselves. But look at the world. The very fact that there is no uniform happiness here indicates that there is a God. Simple. Right? Otherwise, we would all be equally happy. We would have made our own happiness and lived a happy life ever after. Like most of the Disney movies are. But that's not real life though. Anyway, coming back to this. So he says, Nigraha is what can you are controlling the mind to get out of a habit that you have done so many repeated number of times is not easy. So you need a great effort. So when Krishna says Nigraha, an ordinary effort is not going to cut it. You need a steadfastness towards getting there. Irrespective of what happens, you are not going to change from your path. If you can do that, then you will be able to get over whatever hurdle you yourself put into because of your habits. Okay? That is the message that Gita is giving. So it is a positive message. That is, you can overcome anything if you have the willpower to it. Sakshi, somebody mentions Sakshi, Cheta, Keval. That Sakshi is our own conscience. It is, of course, Paramatma is Sakshi. Every Vedantin has used the word Sakshi. Advaita Vedanta also uses the word Sakshi. But there is only one Sakshi, they call it Sarva Sakshi, and that is God. In our case, Sakshi is simply Jivatma. The knowing part of self is called Sakshi. And it does several things to you. I will just mention one or two. There is a doctrine of Sakshi, is a kind of complicated subject by itself. Many years ago in Puthige Matha, I think, right, they had a East meets the West kind of conference, and I was speaking from the East side, obviously. I spoke this topic of doctrine of Sakshi by Acharya Madhva, which is an original contribution to the world of knowledge. And what Sakshi, that conscience, the very first time you try to do something bad, right, or lie, or cheat, or whatever, there is somebody new warns you, hey, don't do it, right? But then, if you listen to your Sakshi, right, you strengthen that. So it keeps burning brighter and brighter. But if you don't listen to your Sakshi, it becomes weaker and weaker. Then it stops warning. This is how like shoplifting. The first time when somebody shoplifts, they're also scared, like the rest of us are. What if we are caught, kind of thing, right? But then soon that they have not listened to their own Sakshi, and therefore what happens, it becomes a habit after a while. So they stop warning them. Whereas on the other hand, if you have never gone against your own conscience, you become like another Mahatma Gandhi. He never went against his conscience. That's why he was able to, with one man, he could take on the British Empire. That is the power of Sakshi that he mentioned. Of course, Paramatma, Nachaham Tesho Avasthitaha, as he says, he is there as witness. Avasthitaha means I am in everything. God is in all. That's why he is called Sarva. But he doesn't go through the change. That is the avasthita word is used in Gita. He doesn't go through the avastha that things go through. We all go through different avasthas, like birth and death and whatnot. In between rogas and Janma Mrityu Jara Vyadhi Dukkha Doshanudarshanam, he says. So all that constant changes that we go through, God, although He is in everybody, He does not go through anything. Dataham chetu avasthitaha. That's what it means. Okay? And then, I hope I have answered all questions. The 3 students of Keshava Rao did a wonderful job. Congratulations to your teacher and to all the teachers.
5 out of 10. Got to be strict.
100 out of 10.
So if you have any other questions, you can ask.
Yeah.
Yes.
I think that gentleman had questions and we kind of parked it.
5:40. Yeah.
Yeah, it's 5.
We need to go to an exception.
We have to leave by 6.
You have to leave by 6. Okay. All right.
No.
One more question.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, right.
So,
One has to keep.
Let's Purna continue.
Okay.
Question.
ah.
See, we are talking about intrinsic nature of the jiva and all that stuff.
Mhm.
And there is also this other is called Swabhava.
Mhm.
So each individual is.
Mhm.
Yeah. The question came, can Prabhava influence the intrinsic value or it is just a facade?
Prabhava? No, Prabhava. It is, Swabhava and Prabhava. Prabhava is your Paratantra, when we say, right? There are 4 types of Paratantras. One is Swabhava Paratantra, right? The very first one. Okay? And then second one is Sannivesha Paratantra. You are put in a certain situation that you didn't ask for it really. Did I ask I should be born in Mysore? I didn't. It so happened that I was born in Mysore. So like that. It is true for all of us. Right? And then that is the Sannivesha Paratantra. Sannivesha not only means one birth, it means many births. And you are put in a certain situation for a reason that you may or may not understand. Then Phala Paratantra, that we all know. Karmani eva adhikara, I don't have any paratantra. So Phala, getting results for what we do is Phala Paratantra, Sannivesha Paratantra, and Swabhava Paratantra. In Anyavastu Paratantra, the way He has created us, we are dependent on other things. Not only, finally it's God because He has made everything. But however, right now, because I am sitting on the land, I am dependent on air. If I was a fish, it would be a very bad environment for me. Because the way I am built, right? I should be in water. But if I sit in water, I need air. Hello. See how it works? That is the Anyavastu Paratantra He has created for us and puts you there. So these are the 4 types of Paratantra. In that, Swabhava is Paratantra too. Swabhavo Jiva Karmani Kala Shruti Kriyaha Yat Prasadati Me Santi Na Santi Yadupekshaya. That along with Dravyam Karvacha Kalascha Swabhavo Jiva Evacha. See, Swabhava has come in both. Shruti also has come in both. So that is how we understand the all independent doership of the Lord and our own. The best example for this, I was hoping one of you would give this. What they gave is the milk. The milkman. Gopal Nandana. See, the cow is the one which actually Prakriti. It produces cow. But the cow cannot give milk by itself. You need a Gopala. Right? Somebody, a Chetana, outside of the cow, needed to produce that milk from the cow. Although he didn't produce, he still needed. That is the best example for Jiva Kartrutva. Alright? Okay, sir, I will end my this
Just one. Just one microphone.
जयति पराशरसोनुः सत्यवती हृदयनन्दनो व्यासः यस्यास्य कमलगलितं वाङ्मयम् अमृतं जगद्भिवति भुजगभोगावमुद्यम्य हृद्यं निजभुजं दक्षिणं लक्षणाढ्यं ललितमुद्रिक्तविज्ञानमुद्रं भज भज अनन्तमित्या अलपन्तं प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रीणये पूर्णबोधं भवदवोष्णेन तातप्यमानान् भुवि परं नाथमप्रेक्षमाणान् भुवनमन्येन च अन्येन दोष्णा भवतु भीर्मा इति न सान्त्वयन्तम् प्रणतवान् प्राणिनां प्राणभूतं प्रणतिभिः प्रीणये पूर्णबोधम्. Bhagavad Gita, the ancient science and the modern science. That's what Vivek told me to talk about. Usually, Bhagavad Gita is referred to as a past. 5,000 years ago in Kurukshetra it happened. And there are hundreds and hundreds of commentaries being written on it. But as you meditate on Acharya Madhva's Gita Tatparya Nirnaya, you will realize, the Bhagavad Gita just happened now. What happened just now, with all our esteemed scholars talking, was Bhagavad Gita. Where is it said? Right in the first opening, Dharma Kshetre Kurukshetre Samavetaye Utsavaha. This became the Dharma Kshetra. We are all Kurus. Okay, Mamakaha Pandavas Chaiva. Then the mind came. What happened between my people and those Kauravas? Hopefully, Kauravas are those for us, not the Pandavas. Kima Kurvata Sanjaya. Sanjaya, Bhagavan, come and tell me what happened. Sure, he spoke through every one of them. Case over. This is happening every day. That's why we are all Arjunas. Krishna speaks to us as Arjuna every day, all the time. But what's the problem? Some hear us, some hear Krishna, some don't care for Krishna, some sometimes hear Krishna and sometimes don't. Sattvikas hear Krishna, Rajasikas sometimes hear him and sometimes don't. Tamasikas don't care about him. It is just the Jiva Svabhava. Means it is the yellow flower. You cannot take the yellowness out of the flower. You can never do that. Then the flower is not a yellow flower anymore. That's exactly what Jayakrishna ji was telling you. It's not difficult. You just have to close your eyes. He is there. Krishna comes and talks to you. He talked to us, every one of us, right today. Do we have Swatantra? Now, Swatantra is a very beautiful word. And unfortunately, our English colleagues have translated it to the worst possible phrase. Swatantra is not independence, it is self-dependent. Bhagavan, Krishna is self-dependent. Except Krishna, all of us, that's it, period, over, case over. Naham karta, hari karta, that is the meaning. Very simple example. After all this session, we go back home. So before we go back home, we sit in our car. There comes the beauty. You click the ignition. Because inside that intuition comes because you have to move forward, right? You click the ignition. What happens when you click the ignition? There is Agni, Sparsha into Varuna. Then comes the Prana Shakti, the Shakti, and you go forward, you propel. What is that equation you basically learnt in high school? What is force equal to? Mass into acceleration. There is mass, there is Brahmanda. Chaturmukha Brahma was created first. It was acceleratable. Vayu Shakti is there, but until force is there, nothing happens. He basically stood as the force, as the Shakti. As simple as that. So, I am doing. You're being used to do. That's why language is a very powerful thing. When you say, I am seeing you. No, sir. He put you in this position, gave you the eye, put an object in front of you, and then saw it, and he saw that through you, and you experienced it. That's all. With that experience and with this thinking, when you develop, then you get the Anubhava Satya, experiential learning. That's what Acharya Madhva stresses again and again and again. Until you get that, you will never know who you are. Jiva Sakshat Akara. That is what is conveyed in the Gita. Gita vibrations. So when you look at the very creation, through vibration, matter was created. Through matter, everything else that could be perceived by the five senses became apparent. You got to be very careful here. We only become aware, we discover. Nothing can be invented, because what doesn't exist is not there. What exists cannot exist. So saying that, oh, it came from nothing, is a avaijnanika, non-scientific statement. That's all, as simple as that. So if you look at the Vedic science, the science of the Bhagavad Gita, in every sukta that he says, and then take our modern science, which is about 300 years old, you will not only understand deeper what the Vedic science is, you will also see the gaps that is left by the modern science. And there are many, especially people who are dealing with quantum mechanics. Oh my God. Well, Schrodinger's cat. Is it there? Yeah. Is it there? No. What's the state? It is there and not there. That's why, they said in the Upanishad, what is it? Tadejati, tannejati, taddure, tadantare. Man, it exists not. Yeah, it depends on your frame of reference. Oh, relativity. Yes. Einstein. Yes. Is Einstein a Rishi? 100%, because Krishna manifested through him. How many people have not cycled towards a clock tower? Thousands of people have cycled towards a clock tower. Why did it take for Einstein to get that intuition? What happens if I start cycling faster and faster and start reaching the speed of light? Oh, the time starts slowing down. What happens when I am cycling at the speed of light? This is spooky. Time stops. What happens if I exceed the speed of light? That is disastrous. Time starts going backward. But the Upanishad Rishi said, no. You can go forward, you can go backward. Why? Everything is predetermined. Y is equal to mx plus c was true 1,000 years ago, will be true 1,000 years in the future, and is true today, period. I'm sorry if I'm disappointing others, okay? Everything is predetermined. Then why should I do what I do? The same question. Hey buddy, you don't know what is predetermined. The very thought that you got, why I should do why should I do what I do, itself is predetermined. That factor of predetermination completely takes out I, me, myself, cuts it off. You just have to delve into a little bit of mathematics. Sankhya Shastra is all needed to open your eyes. The third chapter in Bhagavata will open it for good if you sit down and meditate on it. But how much ever you learn from a guru, you have to sit down and reiterate it inside. The guru will show you the path, but only you can basically walk on the path. And that path is what Krishna lighted up for us. It is the architecture. That's why in Gita he says so beautifully, Pitahamasya Jagatu, Mata Data Pitamaha, Vedyam Pavitram Omkara Ruksamaya. I am everything, Arjuna. So, do we have any self-dependence? No. We are dependent on him, and he is self-dependent. But as we are here, he makes it very clear. But because the karma is definite. Why? Hatova prapsasi swargam jitva va bhokshase mahim. Tasmad uttishta kaunteya means uttishta everybody. Yuddhaya kritanischaya. But this yuddha is a beautiful yuddha that he has put us through, because it is the yuddha in which we will come out victorious of knowing who our Jiva Sakshatkara is. So you take to look at the modern science, you look at the Vedic science, and you look at Krishna. He basically is exposing it in two different ways. There he takes you through experience. Here he takes you through experimentation. Experimentation evidence, experiential evidence. In the center sits Krishna. Once you start going on a path of this self-realization and studying the Bhagavad Gita, Gita doesn't become a text. It doesn't even become your daily ritual. It basically becomes the beacon that shows you your future. Om Swasti. Thank you.
It is said that the Lord's Sannidhana is in the Jnanis, and today we heard a lot of beautiful discourses from a lot of learned people, and it was for me also a lot of learning experience, and we went through various different topics which are difficult ones, and we enjoyed all of these sessions, and very honored and very indebted for all of the sharing, learning that you shared with us today. I would request all the scholars to please come to the temple, and we'll do namaskara to Lord Shri Krishna, seek his blessings, and Acharya is also there. I want to do a little bit of felicitation for all of you. Krishna, Namaste.